Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing great. It's been a long while since I came here and uploaded a video, and I think lately all my videos begin with this sentence that it's been a long while since I came here and made a video. And the thing is that I actually miss talking about books. I also miss coming here, uploading videos, but then sometimes you just don't get the time. Anyways, I had some time today. I'm done with my second semester, so I just thought, I'll come here, update you guys on what all I've been reading throughout the semester, just some of the works that I have some things to say about. So if that's something that interests you, then keep on watching. So the first work that I want to talk about is The Home and the World by Rabindranath Tagore, because this is one work that I really enjoyed reading. The first reason is that I am very interested in anything related to colonial India and post independence scene and all those things. I'm really interested in all of that, and this one is set around the Swadeshi movement, so right up my alley. One, that's the first reason. Secondly, why I really liked is that when we think about historical moments like the Swadeshi movement, right? We just all have this one version of the movement in our mind and a particular set of points about the movement in our mind. And I'm not saying that those things are wrong or false. They are correct, but they are just one part of it, right? Um, what I mean is that uh, such movements entailed a lot more than we are aware of, right? So, for instance, the Swadeshi movement, we rarely think about the fact that this call for Swadeshi was not really practical for the poor of our country, right? So when they asked them to boycott foreign goods, was it really practical and realistic for the poor people to do? No, they could not do that. They could not stop selling foreign goods because they had to earn bread for their family, and they could not purchase Indian goods because they were pretty expensive. So such movements were not really inclusive, and yes, they had have their value, they had their impact, there's no denying that. But then I really love works like this one, which open up my mind, which widen my horizons, force me to think about one particular thing from so many different angles. And after reading the book, I was discussing it with someone, and it actually provoked a discussion which bordered on debate. Thankfully did not proceed to become a debate. But yeah, and I think that's the purpose of literature, right? To make you think, and this one made me think. And another reason why I liked it was because very skillfully Rabindranath Tagore brings the public, whatever was happening in the public space, in the national arena, he brings it to the small space of home. What I mean is, he shows how these changes happening at the national level, they had their impacts on the dynamics between family members. So we have Bimla and Nikhilesh, they are husband and wife. Bimla has grown up to, she has this passion to become the conventional image of a traditional Indian, ideal Indian woman or ideal Indian wife who worships her husband, and very, she has very conventional notions of what it means to be a good woman and an ideal wife. And her husband Nikhilesh, he's affected by the modernity that he's observing around him, and he does not like all this that Bimla does, worshipping him and all. He wants her to move outside, leave the home, move into the world, things like that. And then we have the entry of this third character, Sandeep. Now, Sandeep is someone who represents the, nationalist fervor. He's very passionate, and it is Nikhilesh kind of who draws Bimla in with his energy and nationalist enthusiasm, and kind of draws her to the outside world. And then there begins this love affair between the two. Then there's this another thing that I really enjoyed reading in the book. When we say things like Bharat Mata and we envision the nation as a woman, we rarely, at least I did not ever think what it meant or how it affected the actual women of the country, right? So this was something new for me, and these are the things that I loved about the book, that it actually made me think about so many different things that I would never have thought about. So yeah, that is why I really love this book. Another work that I want to talk about is Walpole by Ben Jonson. Now, whenever we think about the Elizabethan period or the 16th and the 17th century, we tend to only think about William Shakespeare. So, yeah, I'm really glad that this was a part of my syllabus because I absolutely enjoyed reading the work. It's a satire or a comedy, a satiric comedy, whatever you want to call it. And at the center of it, we have a Venetian nobleman called Walpole. He's like absolutely crazy wealthy, but what he's doing is he's pretending that he's dying. So the people around him, there are different people around him. So there's a lawyer, there's a young merchant, there's a father and a son, and all these people, now they are trying to impress Walpole because they think he's just about to die and they want to become his heir. So they are all legacy hunters, and now they are bringing in presents for him. There's this one stupid guy who actually, even trades his own wife um, just to become his heir. And all of them foolishly, they don't know what Walpole is doing. He's just pretending, and so there's just a lot of confusion that's created, and that confusion in turn creates a lot of humor. And what I really liked was that things have not changed much even today. This book was written centuries ago, but human greed still stands as it is, and we are still prone to giving up on our virtues and morals and everything for very superficial things like money and wealth. And greed is at an all-time high even today. So yeah, that's the briefest I could have been about the book. But if you enjoy reading comedies and satires, then you absolutely have to read Walpole by Ben Jonson. Now, I know I said that we should not focus only on Shakespeare, but that does not mean that I'm not going to talk about him, because I actually read three texts by him this semester, and my absolute favorite one, which if you follow me on Instagram, is Hamlet. Now, this is pretty popular, and that's probably even an understatement. But yeah, I'm not going to discuss the plot with you guys, but Hamlet is basically a tragedy, and I absolutely loved reading it. I actually enjoyed tragedies more than funny stuff. And this was so engaging, and it actually gave you those ominous vibes, right? I felt so involved in the story. Absolutely loved it, so much so that this has become my favorite play by William Shakespeare that I ever read. Another one that I had actually read before, but I reread it because it was, a part of my syllabus, is A Midsummer Night's Dream. Now, this one is actually a comedy. Did not like it as much as Hamlet, but still loved it a lot. Now, this one it's basically kind of a love triangle. Okay, so there's this woman, Hermia. Hermia wants to marry Lysander, but her father wants her to marry Demetrius, and Demetrius also wants to marry her. So now there's one woman, Hermia, and two men who want to marry her. And then we have this another woman called Helena who wants to marry Demetrius. So all of them end up in a forest, and there are there's a lot of magical stuff going on in the play. So there are fairies and everything, and then there's a lot of stuff like magic potions and things like that to make someone fall in love with someone else, but then things go wrong people fall in love with wrong people, and a lot of confusion is created. And as I said, from such confusions there comes a lot of humor, a lot of comedy. You'll end up laughing at so many places. But as is conventional of a comedy, by the end things resolve and it ends up in marriages. So yeah, very festive work. And if you're someone who enjoys light-hearted works more than tragedies, you don't like to read about violence and ghosts and murders, then this is one book you can pick up. The third work of William Shakespeare that I read is again a tragedy, and I did not really enjoy this one, which is King Lear. So this one has King Lear at the center of it. He's an old king who decides to divide up his kingdom between three of his daughters. Not to He asks them to tell him how much they love him, and two of them who actually don't love him, respect him, they make false declarations of love. And the youngest one, Cordelia, who actually loves her father, who's a dutiful daughter, she does not believe in making these grand exclamations and declarations of love. And King Lear, he's so old, but he's not wise, and he ends up giving the kingdom to the two daughters, and he banishes Cordelia just because she's not praising him. But anyways, he banishes her. And then, throughout the time I was reading the book, I had just one thought in my mind, and that was about the Bollywood movie Bagban. If you've read the book, you have to understand what I'm saying, right? Anyways, then he slowly figures out that what he did was wrong. He wrongly judged all three of the daughters, and then he's treated very poorly by the two daughters he gave up everything to. And then, he proceeds and goes on to become mad. And, as happens in tragedies, there are so many deaths by the end, and of course, it's a sad ending. I don't know, it has all the elements of a tragedy, just did not enjoy it much. Definitely not as much as Hamlet. Maybe it's because of the poor edition of the work that I got. I don't know why. I was just in a hurry to read the work, I guess, and this one was very readily, easily available. I just got it, read it. So maybe it was because of the edition, but yeah, did not enjoy it much. Another work that I want to talk to you guys about, it's a non-fiction work called Culture and Imperialism by Edward Said. And actually the whole book was not a part of a syllabus, just a part of it, in which Edward Said is talking about, basically he's talking about, when we think of imperialism, when we think of empires and colonization, what we mostly think of is the political aspects, right? We think of how this another country came and they started governing us. They had they were ruling over us, things like that. What we rarely think about is how this colonization also happened in cultural terms, which means when like they also culturally dominated us. They kind of established their cultural supremacy as well, right? um and the part that was in our syllabus, in that side, was talking about how novels become tools in the hands of such empires to establish this cultural supremacy. So basically, like, English authors of that time, for example, Charles Dickens or Jane Austen, when we read their works, there are often references to the empire, right? And this overseas world where Britain is ruling, but we don't take it very seriously, right? We just see it as a coincidence, just a reference, of innocent reference to the empire. And I agree with Said when he says that this is not just a coincidence. And by writing about the empire, portraying it in a particular way, these authors were active participants of establishing this control over other territories. So the way they wrote about this other part of the world where they were ruling and about themselves, they kind of created the attitudes of people about both these places. They created the way people saw both these places, and that in turn helped solidifying their cultural supremacy over other cultures. So I just thought it was really interesting. I loved reading his work. The only thing is that he just makes the same point again and again and again. He keeps going on rambling. That just really annoyed me. But anyways, I liked the work so much so that if I ever get the time, I would like to read the full book as well. So the last two works that I want to talk to you about today, first one is the Poetics by Aristotle. I also put up an Instagram story, where I said that for some strange reason, I always thought that this is a very difficult read, and I never picked it up. But now I had to, because I had to give exam, so I picked it up, and I was very pleasantly surprised that it's not that difficult of a work, really. And why I'm telling you that is because if you think there's a work that that's very that intimidates you basically, because there was also a time when classics intimidated me, and I've heard there are other people who are intimidated by classics. So if there's any work that intimidates you, please don't be intimidated, give it a go, pick it up, you might really end up enjoying it. So what Aristotle is essentially talking about in the Poetics, he's just for most of it he's talking about the genre of tragedy. What's a tragedy, what makes a good tragedy, a bad tragedy, components of a tragedy. So kind of like an instruction manual if you were going to write a tragedy. And then he also briefly discusses about epics, and then he makes a comparison over if tragedy is better than epic or not. So yeah, I actually really liked it, and this was a translation. I think the translation also matters in terms of how easy it is for you to read. So what the one I read is by Penguin, from the Penguin Classics edition. So if you're interested, you can pick this one up. And for the Republic, we just had the 10th book in our syllabus because that's the book in which Plato says that in an ideal republic, poets should not be there. So he would banish poets from an ideal republic. And the kind of reasons he gives is that, first of all, poets don't represent the truth, and they kind of ignite passions within people which should not be ignited. And yeah, so a lot of these things. So that was why it was in our syllabus. I'm not going to say if I agree with him or not. So yeah, it's interesting. If you want to also know further what he has against poets, then you can definitely read it. So those were just some of the works that I wanted to discuss with you in today's video. I just tried keeping it as brief as I could. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to hit the thumbs up button and subscribe to my channel. If there's any other kind of video you would like me to put out, please let me know in the comment section. I'll try my best to do it. Yeah, and I'll see you in my next video, hopefully very soon. Till then, you can follow me on Instagram. My Instagram handle will be mentioned right here on the screen. See you in my next video. Bye.